if you could give one piece of advice to early stage founders or somebody who's working in a startup space or who's got this idea, what advice would you give them about product market fit or how to get going?
The single most important piece of advice is focus on the problem you're solving. Some of the startups that I might see, they have this amazing solution, like it's really inventive, but actually the problem that they're solving is just not a very big problem, or it's not something that their customer really cares about. For example, you might have this amazing AI-based invention that can solve this problem, but when you ask your customer, can you list your top 5 problems? It's not in that list. That's where I see people going wrong, is they've invested 2 or 3 years in this amazingly inventive solution to a problem that doesn't exist. All you can do is just have conversations right at the start before writing code, talk to the potential customers that you are planning on serving and just ask them questions. And my favorite question, if I was to come and work in your business or send someone in who could work in your business, what would you have them do? Very quickly, you will find the biggest problems they're trying to solve. And so if you're a startup founder, ask questions like that of your potential customers right at the start. That's like the number one piece of advice I would have.
Today, I am thrilled to be chatting with someone who's shaping the way businesses innovate. Paddy Monahan, the Chief Product Officer at Phorest Salon Software, a startup advocate and mentor who's on a mission to help founders and teams grow smarter, faster, and stay more connected. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show, Paddy.
Thank you for having me, and very kind introduction. You make me sound way better than I am, but I'll take it.
Also, we forgot to add that, a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize. He is on his way to curing all of world's hunger. Paddy is a legend, right? I think it's very interesting to talk to someone who's come from an engineering and business background, who switches over into a totally different space of working in the salon world. You've led different startups, including Phorest, and you've mentored different startups. I want to know what the most surprising twist in your journey has been, Mr. Engineer.
Very good. Yeah, I think, my background was an engineer. Originally, I was like writing code. I worked in telecoms primarily as an engineer. So I spent a bit of time there, banking and telecoms and stuff, like big kind of analytics problems. We were trying to be able to tell like Sprint or Verizon if like you were having a bad experience on your phone, something like that, right? So it's kind of writing code. And I think for me, what was really interesting, like a kind of a bit of a turning point for me, was when I was invited out to meet a customer when still working in the telecoms at that time. And I went over, I was in Vienna in Austria, and I went to meet a customer, and we started talking about like how they were using the product that I was writing code on. And it was a really small thing. I had built this tool that helped you to set an alarm, right? So for example, if let's say, for example, you were trying to stream on YouTube and it took more than 5 seconds for the video to start, they could set an alarm to let them know if something like that had happened, right? So they could preemptively set an alarm that would alert them live if something went wrong on their network. And so I spent like maybe 9 months building that product. Then when I went to visit a customer, there was very little usage of it. Like they weren't actually fully creating alarms, not really. They were kind of watching things on a chart instead. And when I saw them react to something, so they saw something on the chart, and immediately they said, okay, that's a problem. I'm like, oh, brilliant. Okay, what are we going to do? He contacted his call center, all this kind of stuff, and fixed the problem. But I was saying to him, why did he set an alarm for that? And it was really eye-opening to me, because he had said, that's what I want to set an alarm for. He could point to it on the screen. And I said, but I can't click that and say, okay, if this happens again, create an alarm. We had this big, elaborate, like rules engine, very, very complicated. And so, long story short, I could see that there was this tiny little problem that we could solve. I added it to the code. It made a huge, big difference to our core product. And as a result, you could really see that talking to customers allowed us to get really ramp up the value they got from the product. And that for me was like a turning point. And I think from around then, I had some managers at the time who allowed me to step out from behind the keyboard and actually get involved with customers and trying to figure out like, what should we build instead of what to build? Like, are we building the right thing? Like, what choices are we making? Why did we decide to build this type of product versus that type of product? And so for me, was just a massive turning point, I would say, in my career, because from that point on, I effectively never wrote a line of code again in production. I did it my own kind of little like trials and playing with my own stuff, but I never did it again professionally, because I actually left the keyboard and went to figure out what should we build? How do we help users? And that's been literally my journey ever since. And that was, oh, I don't even know how long ago it was now. It's probably 15 years or so, I think, since I've been doing that. But yeah, so that was a real big turning point in my career.
I love how you've illuminated that stepping away from the keyboard, and we can take this to mean any of our primary skill sets, but
Yeah.
stepping away from that and looking at something from a different angle. You got on a really granular level,
Yeah.
and saw something different for your client and the user experience that you would not have been able to shoot for if you were behind a desk or talking to other engineers. You had to see what was happening. I think that's something that's very hard to do when we have big picture projects in mind or when we're doing something different. But you stepped away from that. You're able to like really zoom in and focus. And then in that moment, that aha moment was so small, the little blip on the screen and say, huh, how do we solve for that? That's very cool. It's kind of a risk for anybody who's listening, especially if you have any friends that are engineers. Letting an engineer step away from the keyboard and start talking to people, that was a risk that your leaders and managers took, trusting that you could do this. I tease, of course, but it's not
Yeah.
like that little kind of stereotype exists for a reason. When people are really good at a certain thing, especially in technology, sometimes the overlap of being able to relate to the customer on that end isn't always
Sure.
merged. So that was, very risky and bold of you. I think that's great. That would be like me trying to write code. Okay. That would be like me trying
You'd
to
be
step behind a
surprised.
computer. I would be surprised.
You'd
You'd
be
be surprised.
surprised though. Yeah.
I need tech support to update my iPhone. Okay. Like, I mean, all you have to do is push a button and I get overwhelmed, but I think that's really
Yeah.
incredible. And then I love this, what I've learned about your startup soccer. This is something that you started to bring founders together to talk about startups, right? So how did you merge your love of sports and your love of business? Like what gave you this idea? Networking things can typically be very stale and canned. So
Yeah.
when did you come up with this idea and tell me what's happened and how it's kind of rolled out and unfolded?
Yeah, that's so funny. Like, I mean, it's been a couple of years now since we've done it, but that was no one's ever asked me about that actually on a podcast. That's funny. Well done. You've gone right back through the history there for that one. So we originally myself and a guy named Kirk Donahue, who's gone on to be very successful in the kind of payment space. He founded a business and stuff and went out on his own. Very successful guy. But originally, like I want to say, it was probably about 15 years ago when this was triggered as well. And we were at like a startup-y networking event, and there was a lot of them in Dublin and Ireland where I'm based. And they were always the same kind of thing. You just went and like there was drinks and some big corporation sponsored food and drinks, and that's kind of what you did. And you mixed with people, and we were trying to build careers early in our career, and we were all trying to get out there and meet people. So I love like football, soccer, as you would call it over there. We call it football.
Yes, let's call it
But
football. Excuse me. Let's call you Patty and
yes,
let's call it football. Got it.
yeah, so it's football. And the idea is there's a very common kind of just form of football called five-a-side, and you play it usually on like an astroturf pitch, and it's very common for people to play that even in like social like pickup games kind of thing, right? So this is like very common. And we were sitting having a drink, and I think it might have been Kirk who suggested it originally, was like, it'd be amazing if we did something with sports and meetups and put it together. So I think we only met like 3 or 4 times to try and figure something out. And we had this idea. I had run football tournaments before for charity, actually, previous to that. So my mother had passed away with cancer at the time previous to this. And I had run some football tournaments to kind of raise some money there. And so then I was thinking we could put these two things together. And Uber at the time was pretty new. It was brand new in Europe, so it was just rolling out in Ireland for the first time. And we contacted the guy who was launching, like looking after the launch in Ireland. And we just said, look, we're planning on doing this thing. Could you sponsor it? And we ended up getting a few people to sponsor it. But I always love this story. It was the first time, and Uber was still like the black car kind of experience at the time, as opposed to like Uber X. So we had every person showing up to play five-a-side in their like, their cleats and boots and stuff like this. They were all showing up in like black cars where Uber sponsored to drive all of the attendees from wherever they lived all to this like pitch just to play a tournament. And we brought all the startups together, but it was amazing because there was all these like big Mercedes Benz and stuff like this coming in, bringing in all the people.
You guys looked
We had
so
a few drinks
fancy, like
afterwards.
proper footballers showing
Exactly.
up in your black cars.
Yeah, yeah, like real pros, and then we were all like really bad and
Even
aggressively
better.
mediocre footballers. Yeah, so it was honestly it was loads of fun, and it became like a thing for a couple of years. It was like a really big thing in the startup community in Dublin. Like people every year we would run this like startup soccer tournament, and it was like a non-profit. We didn't really make any money from it. It was just to the sponsorship covered the event itself. We just wanted the thing to exist. So we basically willed it into existence, and it was just loads of fun. Yeah, it's just it's a merging of like passion and sports and business all together, and it was just a fun thing to do.
And this might really offend an Irishman, but there's more to networking than having a couple of drinks, right? And
Exactly.
research shows that when you're physical and you're moving, different ideas generate and different different neurons are connecting and things are firing
Yeah.
differently when you're moving while talking ideas, or when you're moving and then talking ideas. It's actually kind of a unique process. So, hey, way to figure out something that you willed
Yeah.
into existence. Has it been a while since you've done startup soccer?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, and actually, I had coffee with Kirk a couple of years back, and we debated bringing it back. It may be something that we do, but it's been a couple of years since we played it now. Um, Although I'm still viciously mediocre at
Yes,
football, and I still play every now and again.
I regret that I don't have my mug that I usually sip tea from in the morning, and it says on one side it says embracing mediocrity, and the other side says good enough. So I always like to say I'm solidly mediocre. I've never said aggressively mediocre, but that is a much better
Yeah.
way to put it for me, because I am aggressive and I am
Yeah.
aggressively mediocre. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we celebrate and cherish mediocrity in our household. There's a
I love it.
movie
When it
called
comes
Meet
to
the
football,
Parents.
that's me.
Yeah, that's good. We should do that. Yeah, I think it's Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers. It's a movie that's pretty
Yeah,
old, but he's like
yeah, I
looking at
remember it.
the father-in-law's looking at all the awards. Do you celebrate mediocrity in this household? It's like participant. And I do. I think sometimes the mediocrity is actually where excellence thrives, especially in the aggressively mediocre space. Well,
I
bring
love
it
it.
back. Would you mind? And I will be
Yeah,
there to be the most aggressively mediocre cheerleader. I might even bring out my cleats from when I was probably 14 the last time I played football and do it. That'd be awesome.
did I
Tell me
hear
a bit
reports that you
about.
do
Okay.
pistol squats? Did I hear reports you do pistol squats? Maybe we can bring that out.
Ooh, this rumor, yes, and heels, as a matter of
Yes.
fact. Uh-huh. Yeah, pistol squats. I always I don't know why. I think maybe I found out that my former spouse couldn't do them, or he was trying to do it, and I was like, I'm gonna do them and I'm going to do them better. Yeah, I don't know. I'm aggressively mediocre and competitive. But yeah, pistol squats, that's like my mobility thing that I like to do. I didn't mean to do it. It just happened while I was on
It just
stage. It
happened one
just
time.
happened. I like it did. It really was like oops. And sometimes I do handstands on accident. So who knows what will happen.
My 11-year-old does the same. Yeah, she does
Yeah,
handstands all the time.
cartwheels and whatever else. I love
Yeah,
it. Um, okay, so
100%.
you were there in the field. You stepped away from
Yeah.
the keyboard, and then all of a sudden you found yourself running around with a bunch of hairstylists or hairdressers or people with this concept. How did you go from that to being in charge at Forest, doing what you do at Forest?
Yeah, so I had been through a couple of companies in a row, and previous to
Mm-hmm.
Forest, the most recent company that I've been in was we were in the travel space. So we designed and built mobile apps for airlines and travel companies. So like Singapore Airlines, Etihad Airlines, like really big airlines. So if you have ever used their apps to book EasyJet in Europe as well, Amex and BCD Business Travel in the US as well. So lots of businesses, and we designed and built their apps as a small startup in Dublin. And I had been through a few companies in a row where we would kind of build up, take on a big competitor, and then just get bought out, and that would be game over, right? So for the team, it felt like a kind of a bit of a letdown, I think, because we felt like we were going to take over the world, and then all of a sudden we get acquired by some big corporation, and I really didn't want to work for a big corporation. And so
Yeah.
what happened with me was I was going through that a few times. And in one of the instances, when we were being acquired, I saw this sign for a talk in a startup community similar to the soccer piece. And it was about why Irish companies need to stop selling out too quickly, right? And that was like a talk. When I saw the name of that, I was I need to go and see this talk. And so it was a small little event in Blackrock in Dublin. And when I was there, I heard this founder speak, and he had kind of recently enough started this business, and he was just talking about like building for the long term, like really focusing on customers instead of like overly focused on investors, and really just trying to raise big VC money, which was like a big thing in the software space. And it was about building a long-term company for the right reasons and focusing on customers instead of investors. And just it really, really resonated with me. And that the person speaking on stage was Ronan Percival, who was the founder of Phorest. So founder and CEO still today. And so that just something connected me with me from that talk. And then weirdly, I had bought a book, and it came from Amazon, and it was actually the wrong book, and I went to refund it or return it. They gave me the refund and said, you can hold on to the book, just please give it away and don't sell it. So I said, no problem. And I put it up on Twitter at the time and said, hey, does anybody want to take this book? And somebody wrote back. I ended up meeting him for a coffee to give him a book. And it turned out that he was working in marketing in Phorest at the time. So basically, I'd had these two
Oh,
connections with Phorest, which was really kind of funny in a small world. And just from having those two interactions, I ended up going for lunch with Ronan, and we just had a conversation about, like, my passions, what I want to do, what he was trying to do with Phorest. And honestly, I knew from that lunch, it was like, that's it. This is what I need to do. And I didn't know. I'm not the ideal customer of a beauty salon. I didn't know anything about the industry, but I kind of could feel his passion for it. And I felt like, I think this is something I want to do, and it's very funny because when I told all my kind of, engineering, startup kind of friends who were like, hairdressing, really? Like they really didn't understand it and didn't get it. And I love that, because it means if no one's kind of focusing on this, surely there's some opportunities for us to do something really interesting. So I made the decision to switch over to the industry, and that was over 10 years ago now. And I've never looked back. Honestly, it's this is me. This is me now. This is my industry, and I love it. And I have more stories about that, but yeah, that was where it started.
so a bit of serendipity,
Yeah.
some little synchronicities along the way that kept nudging you that direction. How new
Yeah.
was Forrest when you joined the team 10 years ago?
So, it wasn't new, but it had taken a while. So, kind of, Ronan's approach was that he bootstrapped it, which meant he kind of built it up. He built it up kind of piece by piece, and so bootstrapped is kind of the analogy that you use there. It's like this phrase that it basically means that without taking huge funding on, you would build something, sell it to some customers, get them paying for it. Once they're paying for it, use that money to do the next thing, and you just kind of build your way up from there. And so at that time, Forest had still been around probably about 10 years, but it was kind of like a 10-year story of building up, very slowly at the beginning. And so it had kind of I think at the time we weren't even really in the US, I think, or maybe we were just about to go into the US. So it was really kind of an Irish and UK thing. Whereas now we're in Ireland, UK, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Australia, the US and Canada, all these places, which at the time we weren't in all those places. It was just kind of an Irish and UK mainly business where Ronan was leading, like, product and what I do today. Ronan was doing all of that. So it was still it was early enough in Forest's journey, even though it was 10 years in. It kind of, those first years were a lot of really heavy graft to get things off the ground, which is
Yeah.
a real credit to Ronan as well, that journey that he took.
So you're able to kind of come in right there at that 10-year mark. And it's like, now
Yeah.
let me make you look amazing. And I'll just come in after like your capitulation. Then you're like, I pushed one button. Look what I've done. How nice. I like that. You just came in and you put
Exactly.
the
And Dave,
final touches on top.
and if you see him, make sure you let him know that I'm obviously, I need to be credited for all of the growth that happens. It's obviously naturally that makes
Yes,
sense.
yes. It was you just came in at the very end and you put the sprinkle of salt to finish it off and you plated it up and you're like, look what I did. Yeah, that's pretty incredible though. What have you found the most appealing about working in this industry? What do you love the most? Like you said, this is you now, this is home. Going from
Yeah.
engineering to that, like all of your friends scratching their head. Can you put into words now why this is where you find yourself most at home?
Oh, it's the people, like 100%. So I knew what I didn't know. So when I started, I knew I didn't know the industry. And so what I did for the first 6 months in Forest is I set out a goal for myself, which I completed, which was for 6 months, 4 mornings a week, I would call a different salon owner every morning and I would just talk to them about their business or the industry or anything like that. I used to work, I'd say every 3 to 4 weeks, I would go and work in a salon as well, just to work front desk to try and understand these things. Ronan originally, when he founded it, was actually working front desk as well. So he'd kind of told me his story of where he found his love for the industry. And so I really started to reach out to our customers and to the industry generally just to try and understand it, because I didn't know much, but immediately I could see how passionate the people were. Like, they would just tell me everything. They would tell me what was going on in their business. They were very open and authentic. No one was trying to make themselves look great or anything. They were just being very direct, very honest. Some of these folks were immensely successful owners, and you would never know to talk to them. And they were just so authentic, and they would tell me everything about the business. And about 6 months in, having worked in salons and spoken to them like almost every day, I knew immediately the thing that would keep me in this industry is the people, like
I
100%. It's
love
the
it.
people in this industry, and that's never changed.
from software engineer to front desk salon phone answer. I mean, but that is also such a testament to looking at a problem from all of the angles and really approaching it very holistically. And that probably enabled you very uniquely to understand all of the needs. And I know even with people like we've mentioned, my friend Gail, who owns Headlines in San Diego, that's a Fort, like I think she was one of the first Phorest customers in the US, or one of the, one of the big accounts you guys took on early on. But even talking to people who've worked with Phorest, it's been around for some time in the US for maybe around 10 years, but having the ability to iterate so quickly or to receive feedback and say, what feature are you wishing you had? Or as trends change, consumer behavior changes, and industry needs adapt. It right now, everything's breakneck speed, that you guys are so nimble and able to be responsive. And I think that that's a really unique thing, and it's transferable to other industries and how we can better serve our our ideal client or enhance the guest experience, customer experience.
100%. And so that idea of going out and talking to customers is something that is so ingrained in our culture in Forest. Like from Ronan literally founding the business while working front desk through to my like first 6 months, I still do it today. I speak with, I always make sure, now it's more difficult to do. I can't really do it every day, but I'll definitely do it at least once a week, where I'll have a conversation like we had recently as well, where I'll just get to know somebody, understand their business, like have a conversation. And we see this across all of our teams now. So, at the moment now, Forest is kind of a larger organization, still not like a big corporation, but we've a lot more people now. There's more than 100 people kind of writing code. And I can't, direct everything or get involved in the detail of everything. And so we need to see teams going and doing that themselves, which they're now
Mhm.
doing in Forest, which is amazing. I love to see it. I get little snippets and recordings from all of our teams who talk to customers like once a week, and they're really finding out what it is, what problem they need to solve. Because honestly, it's very simple, but actually it's incredibly powerful. If you deeply understand the problem that a salon owner has, and we can go and take a team of really smart engineers to try and test and try things to fix it, we end up creating this like kind of magic together with the customers. So we co-build everything with customers. You'll see this, and I know there's loads of people like Gail who will attest to this, where when we're building or we're early on in building something, we'll literally like let you try it out, let you test it with us, tell us where we're going wrong. Like we kind of it requires you to set your ego down a little bit, but honestly, it creates magic. And our customers, I think, generally they feel that from us. They know we're listening, like we actually are listening and we actually care.
And doesn't that translate across the board to so many of the needs of consumers today, where people are looking for that enhanced human touch? And that's something that I think I've experienced just in the few interactions I've been fortunate to have with you and people on your team, where that's such an emphasis. And like you said, as you guys have scaled and you've grown and you've gotten bigger and bigger, and now your reach is multiple countries and so forth, you still are finding ways from the top down to have these kind of interactions with the customer. Can you share a story or a time, maybe something that stands out to you, where Forest's product strategy had a really tangible impact on a business's growth, or where you saw like something, for that, I'm at the front desk at the salon, or I'm talking to somebody, and then you said, okay, let's pivot and let's create this strategy. And then you saw the results in a business. Can you share a story or a time when you've seen that happen firsthand?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots, but actually, my favorite one is in the advertising space. So through a lot of conversations, we really focus on marketing a lot, right? So we want to help the salon to grow, and marketing is always an area of real focus for us because it can drive a lot of impact, right? Through whether that's through like email marketing, SMS marketing, referrals, loyalty, all of this stuff, and we kind of saw this opportunity through speaking with customers, where I heard this story over and over again, where they would say, I would say, do you do much advertising? Do you do like Instagram, Facebook advertising? And so many people would say like, no, doesn't really work for me. I've never really found that it worked. And that kept sticking in our heads, my heads and the team's head, where we knew there had to be something. There had to be a way around this. But this idea that ads doesn't work, we kept coming back to it, because there was times when I went out to do customer interviews about a completely different feature, and they would talk to me about ads or how ads don't work. And it was just like really, we could feel it being pulled from us, from our customers asking questions. So we weren't planning on actually building it at the time. We were doing a new enhanced wait list at the time when we were doing these interviews, but it just kept coming up over and over again. And so we did a whole load of research to try and understand, like, why is it? Like, why don't ads work in the industry? And we actually were lucky that because we're in Dublin here, we're based in Dublin, like Dublin is also Meta's European headquarters. And so they had a development team there and we had some contacts. So we ended up going over and spending some time with their team as well to try and understand, like, how does this advertising mechanism work? And the single thing that we found at the nub of everything is that within a salon, you might be running an ad to try and get a new customer in the door. They might see this on Instagram. First thing they do, and our research showed this as well, 84% of the time, they shut down the app when they see a new salon. Wow, this looks amazing. They don't just click and book straight away and go into a new salon. You shut down the app, maybe you Google them, you look at their reviews, maybe you phone the salon and say, okay, I'd love to come in and I don't really know what I need to book. And this is the normal behavior. But that's actually really, really important because what happens is in the world of Meta, once you shut the app, they have no idea that you phoned the salon. So actually, because you saw the ad worked. You phoned the salon and booked in. But Meta, Instagram, Facebook, they have no idea that this booking actually happened. And so 90% of all the activity in our industry happens offline. It happens in the salon or over the phone. Right? You've seen this yourself. Somebody sees an ad, they call the salon, and maybe they do book online, but then, they add on treatments, they buy retail, they rebook before they leave, all of this activity. And Meta has no idea that any of this exists. So they don't think the advertising is working because you can imagine if you sent an ad, 10 people viewed that ad, maybe one of them booked, but actually 6 of them had picked up the phone and called you. That ad was killing it. You were probably making thousands of dollars and you had no idea because how can they know? They don't know what happens in the building. And so we pivoted our strategy around marketing and we built Phorest Ads Manager, which is the only integrated platform in the industry, which actually takes that offline activity that happens over the phone or at the desk and merges it with the advertising platforms and gives you a full 360 view of what's actually happening. And it means that you can drive your performance of your ads even higher because it's a learning engine. Like ads learn over time. So if it doesn't know it's doing well, it's going to be going in the wrong direction. If it's only working off 10% of the picture, it's not learning in the right way. But so if we can give it 100% of the picture, that's so much more powerful. And we've been seeing the results and they are absolutely phenomenal. So that's a real example of, I think, where we kind of pivoted our strategy a little bit and saw some real phenomenal results. And I can give some example results now in a second, but just mind-blowing stuff.
Okay, how long has this been in effect, this ads manager component?
We launched it in probably about a year and a half ago, I would say. Something like that.
So it's
probably
pretty
maybe
new.
Yeah, I'd say about maybe 2 years ago, we probably kind of started to get it out there. But I'd say about a year and a half ago, it really kind of started to kind of take off when we could see the performance coming through.
Hey, business owners. Yes, you. I know you're juggling it all. Marketing, admin tasks, websites, podcasts, social media. The list never ends. That's where Spark comes in. We're a virtual assistant company built just for small business owners because once you're able to delegate, we know you'll be able to dominate. Our clients are seeing up to 30% increase in social media engagement and sales, all by letting us handle the behind the scenes work. Not to mention an incredible boost in flexibility, profit, and time. So scan the QR code right now to schedule a free chat with my team. Let's make you efficient AF and help you focus on what you do best, growing and leading your business.
So just asking for a friend who owns a salon in Mesa, Arizona, I don't even know if we're using this feature. And this is something that I actually speak about when I talk about delegating. And I'm like, do you know that most people only use around at most 30% of the capacity of their salon software or any of their technologies
100%.
in salon? About that, like, note to self, please see, please check in and see if we're doing this. Oh my, yeah, that's amazing. Okay, well, this is very cool.
Honestly.
It's massive actually, and it's pretty new. And like you said, you were out there looking to build better wait list components, and instead you
Yeah.
pivoted to something else. And I think sometimes that listening piece where we're like, this is what we should do, and then you go, wait a minute, this is what's happening on the ground. I mean, it's very nice about being nimble and listening. And I think what I keep hearing over and over from you, Patty, is that getting in the shoes or in the space of the people that you serve, you begin to understand their experience, the hangups, the challenges, and what you need to solve for, which I think it's really powerful to just think about cross promoting and translating to any of our work, no matter what industry you're in when you're listening, or no matter what capacity you are, like say in the beauty space. This is all very relevant, I believe. What's your philosophy when it comes to building and developing products? that will truly serve the business and the client or and the customer? Like how do you develop that to serve both? Because as a business owner, and I do own a salon, I want to make sure that my numbers are growing and that those things are happening. And then how do you also factor in the client experience as you're doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, at the end of the day, we're a business, salons are businesses too. There's nothing wrong with generating revenue from that. Like that, it's all about value though. So the way that I
Right.
look at this, which is another thing that I love about the industry, is that because people are so authentic, like we can build this thing and say, oh, this is really cool and we're going to charge you this much for it. But unless you can actually see that it works and that it is actually really good for your business, you're just not going to spend money on it. You're not going to pay for it,
Mhm.
which it's interesting because in other industries, actually, like when I worked in telecoms, they might hear this idea and think, well, that's amazing. I'm going to pay for that because the idea sounds really good. But with a salon owner, they need to see it, they need to feel it, they need to touch it, they need to know that this thing actually works. And so for us, we have to make sure that we create a lot of value for our customers, right? So for example, looking at Ads Manager, the example that I said there with Meta. So Meta say that for every $100 you spend when you're trying to find new customers, you should get about $500 back, right? That's a 5x return on ad spend. That's what they kind of say is the kind of litmus of what you should be aiming for. Within Phorest, using Phorest Ads Manager, because of this offline data and all the things I just said, we get over, for $100, we don't get $500 back. We get over $2,000 back for the salon for every $100 that they spent. So that's $1,500 extra. That is purely down to the performance of our product, right? So if you run that,
Wow.
for example, every month, or sometimes that's bigger. That's only $100. If you're spending $500, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We've seen some crazy, crazy
Wow.
results. And so for Phorest, you might spend $500. You might make like over $10,000 back from that. Phorest in that month will charge you about $100 as an add-on fee for that. And so for us, we're not ashamed to charge money for that because we know we're creating value. We know we can prove that we're driving your business growth. But we take a small slice, a very, very small slice in terms of the overall value that's being created. And that means that everybody's kind of happy. You know that we're providing value, we're charging you for it, but we're not taking, 70% of what you've earned. You're only taking small pieces. And so because of that, we're able to have this great relationship where we can keep driving your growth and also help Phorest to grow because we use those fees that we get, we invest it back into our development so that we can build the next thing for you. Like that's the way that it works. It's like an economic cycle.
I love this. It's a positive upward spiral. Yeah, that's really
Yes.
cool. So if someone puts money out into the ads and it doesn't yield a return, are they not charged for the service?
So the way that we work is you can actually disable it for a period of time, right? So what we do is we won't continue the product if it's not working for you, right? So at the same time, what we've done recently is if you upgrade to something like ads, we have added in a new leads management product. Okay. So for example, if you're paying for this product and you run ads and maybe you're not getting new clients, although we see that 92% or more of salons are getting huge results, right? But sometimes there's a few
Wow.
people where maybe because of the town you're in or something, ads aren't working. What we did is we took the revenue we were generating from ads to build a leads management platform, which allows you to take inquiries online, to develop those people who are interested in hearing more about your business. And we added that product into ads for free. So as a way where if it's not working, if ads isn't working for you for some reason, we have an alternate product that is also available for you for free on top of that. So that's kind of the way that we look at it. We look to provide
Yeah,
more value instead of taking it away.
I like that. And I see that that's also something cross transferable. If you're looking to do something and a guest doesn't experience maybe the results you're hoping for, making sure that you're consistently adding value, adding value, adding value.
Yeah. Like if
That
somebody
is, it's
doesn't have
hard
a,
to
say,
argue with that approach.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it in your salon, like if somebody isn't happy when they leave the salon, like you can always refund them, or you can try and get them back in and try and fix it, try and help them, try and change it a little bit to turn that situation around, and that's much more healthy in the long term for you and for them, right? So it's all about a relationship. So I think where something, for example, doesn't work, we can look for other ways to provide that value instead of just like, okay, well, we're going to not charge and we're never going to use this again. It's not a value driven relationship that way.
I love that. Um,
Yeah.
I would love to know if you could give one piece of advice to early stage founders or somebody who's working in a startup space or who's got this idea. What advice would you give them about product market fit or how to get going? What kind of advice would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I do some mentoring programs in Ireland, kind of locally as well. And I support some of our local universities too in this, and so I get asked that question a lot. So for me, the single most important piece of advice is focus on the problem you're solving. Because a lot of the time, some of the startups that I might see or have a conversation with, they have this amazing solution, like it's really inventive and stuff like this. But actually, the problem that they're solving is just not a very big problem, or it's not something that their customer really cares about, right? So, for example, you might have this amazing AI based invention that can solve this problem. But when you ask your customer, can you list your top 5 problems? It's not in it. It's not in that list. So it's actually not a big problem for the customer. And more often than not, that's where I see people going wrong, is they've invested 2 or 3 years in this amazingly inventive solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Or, they have an answer to a question no one's asking. So that's kind of the place where I see people going wrong. And so for that, all you can do is just have conversations right at the start before writing code, talk to the potential customers that you are planning on serving, and just ask them questions. And my favorite question is, if I was to come and work in your business or send someone in who could work in your business, and they were going to have like a Phorest t-shirt on, right? And they're an expert in everything from marketing to finance to like inventory, logistics, anything, operations, everything. What would you have them do if I sent them into your business to work for you for a week or two? Very quickly, you will find the biggest problems they're trying to solve. If you ask them for feedback on your products, they might tell you to move the button. But if you ignore the technology and say, if I send a person in, what would you have them do for you? And that really tells you the problems that they have that you want to solve. And so if you're a startup founder, ask questions like that of your potential customers right at the start. Before you start writing code, make sure the problem you're solving is one that they actually want solved. That's like the number one piece of advice I would have.
Okay, look for the demand before you create the supply, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not that hard.
It isn't, but you think about when we get these great ideas, these clever, creative engineers, entrepreneurs, or people who have these startup mindsets, sometimes we get really cute instead of focusing on the actual problems. I think it's so impactful that you mentor people in your community, and I love that you do sometimes teach at the local college and different things like that. I think that's clearly you manage a lot, you wear a lot of hats, and you're continually giving back and reiterating what you're doing, which I think is so powerful. I want to know, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from mentoring founders and helping people through their early stage challenges?
I think that even for me, I was kind of involved in some startups early on, and I think I realized that what it takes to get something from 0 to 1, it takes a lot. And there are people who are built for that. And there are people who are built from taking it from 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 1,000,000, right? To take this nub of an idea and make it flourish like globally into something. And I even realized about myself that I actually prefer to be at that 1 to 1,000 phase more than I like the 0 to 1 phase, because I really like kind of scaling that up and creating a much bigger impact. And so for me, a big lesson was understanding where you flourish. Like where is your sweet spot here in terms of the work that's required and the type of work that's required? Because it's no less heavy work, it's no less busy, but understanding if you really want to go out on your own, the work that's going to take, the approach it's going to take to be resilient enough to survive for a long period of time without potentially, not knowing if you're going to make payroll, these kind of things. And being honest with yourself up front as to whether or not that is going to be a driver for you, or if you're better off, getting involved early with the business and helping that to scale as part of the leadership team and really kind of taking that forward. And I think that's more what happened with me with Phorest, because Ronan was the one who got that off the ground. He was the one who brought it from 0 to 1. And I joined and helped him to take it from 1 or maybe 10 at that time up to like 1,000 or 1,000,000. And we did that as a group, as a team, and many of us involved. But for me, that was a big learning. Just knowing where your sweet spot is, like where do you want to be in that journey? Are you at the start, early on, middle, later? Some people like to join massive companies like a Microsoft or something, and knowing, I think, where you want to be and what you're passionate about, and being honest with yourself, because there's a lot of people out there who think they want to start a business, but they don't really understand just the level of effort that takes. It takes a lot.
Like
Do you have enough emotional support, resilience, a paper bag to breathe into? Am I the only person who's worked on a startup or founded more than one business who's been in the fetal position in my office having a panic attack once or twice? We can smile and laugh, but these are all true stories. Like,
Oh,
actually, you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what have I done? You know, and that's something to bear in mind. Like, as somebody with an entrepreneurial heart or someone, I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur. Just I had an idea, I had a problem, and I wanted to help solve it. And then one thing leads to
Yeah.
another, and pretty soon you're like, uh, Mom, are you there? Hey, how do I have 50 team members in the Philippines right now? And is this okay? Um, you know what I mean? Like
You're an
these people
adult
are,
now.
yeah, these people are relying on me for their livelihoods. And what happened? You know what I mean? So like really taking a moment to consider where you belong in that. Are you here to support that journey? Are you here to found it? Do you want to take it from small to one client, or do you want to take it from 100 to 1,000, or do you want to be just, behind a keyboard and like staying in a safe zone? It is a roller coaster, and it is not for everybody, not to dissuade people,
Yeah.
but working with founders and mentors, I mean, mentoring them isn't for the faint of heart, I'm sure, let alone being one of them. So yeah, just make sure you have enough, breathing techniques and enough like reserves in your brain and in your bank account to go through what
Yeah.
will inevitably be a very overwhelming process. Oh my
And,
goodness, I
and
love it.
the support for
Yeah,
things like that is
yeah,
really important. As you
yeah.
said, like the networks and knowing people, and even no matter what stage of the journey you're at, like you need to have a group around you, like from family and friends, but also within the
Yes.
business and your peers around the business who can help you. That's
Yeah.
really, really important. I to be honest, I can kind of see it very early on with some of the founders where I can just feel that they understand, like you did, right? You understood the problem that you needed to solve. Like
Hmm.
you felt the problem yourself. So you kind of knew
Right.
that, you were going to create something like Spark to solve a very real problem that you had, right? Whereas I can feel that when they're in love with the problem versus being in love with the solution. Like I think you ended up with the Philippines and the idea of the virtual assistant concept that evolved from you understanding that we need to delegate in the industry, right? Like you knew that and you were in love with that problem and you found a solution for it. Whereas most of the
Right.
time, I can see a lot of early stage folks just falling in love with the idea of, I want to have an army of people in the Philippines and I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. Like that's kind of what happens. It's
Oh
kind of
my
crazy, but it's more
goodness.
common than you'd think.
I, I cannot imagine. And you're sitting here saying I'm in love with the problem. And that's another way of saying I'm in love with myself, Patty. But I mean, we should all love ourselves. But yeah, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Like for real. Like
Yeah.
I was the problem, and I had to figure out a solution so I could function as an adult in business with ADD. So forget about it. Oh my goodness. I love this. And
Yeah.
um with all this, I want to know, like looking ahead at technology and trends and innovations and all this, because that's kind of how your brain works. That's your lane and your expertise. What innovations in startup and tech excite you the most right now? What things are you most looking forward to impacting just in general, but our industry in specific?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it would be crazy not to say AI, just given what's happening in the world right now and kind of how quickly that has kind of accelerated over the last like 2 years or so, right? So it's definitely AI, but I think knowing how our industry works and how personal that can be, it's looking at AI not as like a cost saver where it can like replace your team. I've heard that a few times. Honestly, it just doesn't feel right knowing the industry for me. It's not about like cutting loads of staff out of your salon. Like it's a personal business. Like we know this is a personal business. It's about connection. And so specifically with AI, looking at how AI can actually like augment or support you or your team to make your team better, not to replace them, but to actually amplify them. So your team should be amplified by AI, not being worried about being replaced by them. And so I'm really excited about that. And actually, we've seen some just phenomenal progress with our teams in Phorest. And there's a few areas of this that we're working on, but one of them, and I won't say too much about it, yes, you will see it in January. But one of them is just looking at what some of the best service providers do. So we've done a load of research here to understand like what is it that people do. Like they wake up in the morning. We heard these stories of, there's a service provider we had interviewed where she spends 30 minutes every morning looking through her book for the day, looking at the value of future appointments, looking at her goal for the day, understanding, what gap she needs to close. Like maybe she needs to make another $200, $500. and dissecting was her words, dissecting every client that's coming in that day, looking back through their notes, figuring out, like a plan. What opportunities do I have? Like, did they buy a retail product every other visit? Are they due one now? Even understanding personally, like, had they been away, they've been on holidays, all of this kind of
Right.
stuff. And looking at what humans are doing, and we know works, right? But it's very difficult to be consistent with something like that.
Yeah.
And so seeing how AI can help do that on your behalf, that is something that's very exciting for me. And we're working on something there, and I've seen the reactions to it already. And I feel like that's going to be just transformational and helping our team do more, So I think that's the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I did hear a little sneak peek information about it at Data
You
Driven
did, yeah.
recently, and
Yeah.
I am very excited about this innovation. And I think perhaps because you're not a very busy guy, mentoring people, teaching at colleges, working with Phorest, and so forth. It might be nice to have somebody else on your team, perhaps you or somebody else in your stead, to share a bit about that when that launches and rolls forth. Because as you're talking about this top performing stylist who says,
Yeah.
I go in and I dissect everything, when you're talking about how
Yeah.
they dissect their client, their experience, their purchases, and so forth. First of all, this is somebody who's on the ball. You mentioned it's really hard to be consistent in this space. The truth is,
Yeah.
for a lot of us human beings, it's hard to be consistent in every area. So using
Yeah.
technology and AI to enhance our consistency and to not replace, like you said, again, I've had people asking me too about my own business, like, are you worried about AI? And I'm thinking, no, I think it's exciting and amazing. I want to be on the forefront of collaborating with it and helping overwhelmed creatives and stylists, rather than helping them learn what's new in AI, saying, my team's got that handled for you. We're going to be the liaison. We're going to communicate and be bridging the gap. So you do your thing, stay in your skill set, and we're going to help you make your human experience and your human touch even more enhanced and heightened, while we understand the technology and the things that are moving your business forward for you. And we're just going to communicate with it for you. So I like that idea of feeling excited about it rather than threatened, and then realizing that what we can do with these tools is become more consistent, enhance our human experience, and really dial in the customer experience so that we're serving our communities better in whatever we're doing. I love that so much. Okay, I want to know, you can choose any of these that you want to answer. I'll just rapid fire a couple at you. If you have like a favorite leadership quote off the top of your head, or a favorite book about leadership or business that you think everyone should read, anything like that you want to share with our listeners?
Yes. So my favorite business book, it's a little bit of kind of heavy reading, but it's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Rummelt. So that for me is definitely the best business book I've ever read. I read it probably once a year, maybe once every 18 months. I reread it just to remind myself.
Wow. Okay.
And in summary, the idea of it is that strategy is diagnosing or understanding the situation. It's like 90% of it is diagnosing what's going on. It's the same thing I just said, understanding the problem rather than the solution. So it's kind of about that. And my favorite quote in business, and I say this a lot, and I think I probably drive my team nuts, is what does good look like? So when we're about to start off on something, some initiative, whatever it is we're trying to do, I always start with what does good look like? Like, how do we know we've hit the result before we start? Like, what is it we're trying to do? How would we know we're there when we get there? And that can help you get really clear on decisions you need to make. Should we do this? Should we do that? Unless you're very clear on where you're trying to get to, it kind of doesn't matter, if you take the left decision or the right decision. But if you know exactly where you're trying to get to, then every decision is about getting to that end result. And so for me, with all of our teams, whenever they're working on anything, you'll often hear me say, what does good look like here? And that's, for me, it's like a rule I live by. It's knowing where you're trying to get to and working back from that.
That's brilliant. Stephen R. Covey, who does leadership and those kind of things, his books and the 7 habits, one of the 7 habits is begin with the end in mind. And that sounds a lot like that.
Yes.
Defining what good looks like, what is the end result that you're looking for, and now build the steps, reverse engineer that backwards to getting there. That's excellent.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing both of those. Where can the people who are listening to this podcast who think, man, that Paddy, he's a swell guy, where can they find more about you? Where can they connect with you, or maybe follow, on LinkedIn or social media pages? How do our listeners get to find and learn more from you?
Yeah, well, first of all, to learn more about Phorest, go to phorest.com. That's Phorest. So Phorest with a PH. So go to phorest.com, first of all, to learn more about like us and what we do. And for me, just you can drop me an email, actually, is probably the best. So it's Paddy, Paddy, at phorest.com, Phorest. So that to me, like I'm happy to answer questions if people have kind of things in mind. Do reach out to me. And there's one piece just as we finish where you mentioned there at the start, you feel like we only use about 30% of our software.
Right.
So I think that that's definitely true. And I've also recently come to the realization that I'm not sure we're ever going to get to 100%. And I think that that's okay. So I think the way that I think about it now, which is kind of a bit of a change in how I view this, is as long as we understand what you're trying to do today, we can give you the tools to help you to solve it. So it's more like thinking about your software as a toolbox. So you don't always need to use all the tools in the toolbox, but when you've got a certain job where you need to hang a frame on the wall, knowing that the tool is there and how to use
Yes.
it is the most important piece. And I know that with Phorest, if you literally just click contact support and say, hey, can my business advisor give me a call? I've got some problems and I don't really know how to solve them. Chances are we have a tool in the toolbox that can help you. So instead of trying to use everything, I would talk to us in Phorest, tell us what you're trying to do. Chances are we have a solution for you. And that's how we kind of partner together is we understand the problem you're trying to solve. Hopefully we have a solution in the toolbox and we use it together. Or worst case, we'll take that feedback and we'll go and work on that tool for the next time.
So incredible. I am so excited and very honored to be getting to join you and your team at your Sold Out Summit in Dublin. So excited. I've heard many good things about this party in Dublin and how much learning takes place. So I'm really lucky to get to be out there to present a breakout room. So thank you for inviting me. I cannot wait to meet you IRL. Yeah, and now I really do have notes after listening to you speak. To my own podcast guests where I'm like, I need to go check in with my salon support person from Phorest. I need to make sure that we have that activated. I don't know that we do. I'm horrified to tell you that I'm not using probably more than 60% of the software, even though I have a team of people dedicated to doing this. Yeah, I love this. I'm learning as we go. And honestly, if we don't have that kind of that level of ability to see and assess, then we're not really getting anywhere anyway. So Paddy, you have been a dream and a delight. As far as an engineer goes, I've got to say, like, you do better out in front, away from the keyboard. Very, very impressed and grateful for what you shared, for your passion for mentoring, for growing and leading technology, and especially enhancing the human touch. It has been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Heather. Appreciate it.